What is the gig economy and what does it mean in the context of the accounting profession? Well, in this 155th episode of the Go Beyond Disruption podcast, we'll explore the growing prominence and the relevance of independent finance professionals, IFPs. We'll look at what the data and the research is telling us and give you a clear sense of how the AICPA and CIMA is supporting this growing sector, particularly in the way that we're developing special content and resources for members in or members considering entering the so-called gig economy. Hello, welcome to the podcast. It's brought to you by the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, the unified voice of the AICPA and CIMA. From the London office of the association, I'm Kyle Hannon. Every week here on the podcast, we share insights from inside the accounting and finance profession that help you stay ahead of the curve, whatever business you're in and whatever changes your business is facing. This week's episode is all about going gig, getting started as an independent finance professional. I'm joined by two guests, both colleagues, but from different parts of the world. From the same office as I am here in London, content strategist Rosie McKeown, and from Durham, North Carolina, Vice President for Small Firms Interests, Carl Peterson. Thank you both for joining us. Rosie, let's start with you. I did say that we are colleagues from the London office. It's an office we've not been to for a while. Where are we catching you today?
Hi, it's a pleasure to join you. I am in sunny Greenwich in southeast London.
All right. And Carl, how's the weather where you are? Are you close to the office in Durham, North Carolina?
I am not actually close to the office in Durham, Kyle. I actually have a house and live in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
That means that we are using technology to connect, and we are talking about something less so about where we are today, but where we as professionals may be going in the future. There's all sorts of interesting research and all sorts of new directions that the professionals that make up that community are considering going. And that's why we're talking about the gig economy. But why are we talking about that with a content strategist and a vice president for small firms? Rosie, what does the role that you do for the association generally involve?
Well, the association creates quite a lot of content for our members, and the aim of that is to support and help them develop as professionals through their working careers, and of course new and hopefully students, and encouraging them to become fully fledged members and stick with us through their career. So I'm all about making sure that we develop useful, engaging content that's really going to support our members.
Now, you talked about helping people perhaps when they're starting their careers. I know you were mentioning students, but Carl, you work with professionals who at a much later stage, of course, if you're a vice president for small firms at the association, you deal with a different sector, don't you? So tell us about your work for the association and who you work with.
I do work with a different segment in that I don't really work with students much at all, though they are certainly a critical component of the future of the profession, right, with the pipeline. But I actually work with small firms from beginning to end, right? I work with a lot of independent financial professionals. And my role as Vice President of Small Firm Interests, I look at it as 360 degrees of advocacy, whereas I make sure I understand the issues that independents have, that small firms have, in the whole business and life cycle. And I advocate on their behalf back to the association. I advocate on their behalf to different legislative bodies around the world and standard-setting bodies to make sure that we are providing the support that they need in their endeavor.
That makes it pretty clear why both of you have joined us here on the podcast, talking about this disruption and this new direction for many in the profession, looking at it from two different perspectives. But of course, all those different perspectives taken into account, we do need an umbrella title. So we've decided to call this episode Going Gig, Getting Started as an Independent Finance Professional. Rosie, why is this getting so much attention at the moment? Is it all because of all the gig work headlines we're seeing? We read about delivery drivers and taxi hailing apps and all that kind of stuff. That's not the only story out there at the moment. Why is the gig economy so of the moment?
Like a lot of work that we're doing at the moment, the catalyst has, of course, been the pandemic and its effect, its impact on the world of work. We see that people were losing jobs or going on furlough. And we wanted to understand, how it was affecting our members. And so we undertook research last year to sort of dig into that. And we did see that a lot of people were thinking of going self-employed. So I suppose gig in the broadest sense, of course, we naturally think about, you're right, the sort of Ubers and the platform-based economy that has come to the fore recently. But for the profession, we're thinking of gig or the alternative workforce in its broader sense. So different forms of self-employment, be that contract work, interim work, temporary work, as well as, setting up as your sole practitioner or a member in practice. So I suppose that was a catalyst for this piece of work that we've undertaken. But Carl, perhaps you can talk a little bit about the broader picture and the gig economy, which I know I've read is just growing exponentially.
Yeah, that's right, Rosie. You think about the gig economy, like you said, we think about Uber and DoorDash and other similar type of gig work that's out there. But really that engagement of an individual provides services, typically short-term, but not always, right? It can be longer-term gigs. When I think about it, I think you could compare it to working through a temp agency, going from one gig contract to another. In the context of independent financial professionals, whether you're a CPA or other finance professional, it's really an engagement to provide services. And it could be outsourcing your services as a CFO or a controller. When I was in practice, before I came to the AICPA, we had a number of our clients were actually CPAs that were independent financial professionals holding out and outsourcing their CFO financial expertise, to different organizations. And they'd be going from one contract to another. Sometimes it was a 6-month deal. Sometimes it was a multi-year project. But I think, as you alluded to, most importantly is that growth and demand for gig workers in the finance area. Let me share with you from a PwC report earlier this year. Their report was titled Productivity 2021 and Beyond. It identified that in the next 5 years, the gig pool is forecasted to take on as much as 20% of the workload at most financial institutions. And more than half of financial services firms, 52%, surveyed by PwC, said they plan to expand their on-demand talent in the next 3 to 5 years. So I think the gig economy is right here in front of us, waiting for all of the independent financial professionals to jump in.
So, Carl, what does the phrase going gig actually mean to a finance professional?
Going gig, going independent, right? Going off on my own, breaking away from the organization that you might be with, becoming independent. I think it has a lot to do with work-life balance. There's an opportunity to take control, be entrepreneurial, and control the work-life balance and the pressures that you have in your career already.
At the moment, especially as we hopefully transition from lockdown and into a post-pandemic phase, we're certainly discovering a whole new ambition for what work-life balance is supposed to mean. Look, it has been disruptive, and disruption never stops, and nor does the flow of information. Rosie, I'm going to go back to something you talked about. You mentioned research. What are some of those research findings that you're seeing in this context? What do we know, for example, about the members that you work with and their ambitions?
Back in 2020, we conducted a special survey, and let me just take a pause and say thank you to our members. We do survey them regularly. It's just a vital tool to help us think about what products, services, information that we can create to support them. So thank you if you take part in any AICPA or CIMA survey, but also thank you for taking part in this one. So we heard that around 30% of members, so that's both AICPA and CIMA, are considering the gig economy. And I mean being self-employed, being independent finance professionals. So that's the whole myriad from contract work to consultancy. I mean, Carl was just saying, you can be a CFO as a gig worker. So we already know we've got a large population of members essentially in that gig economy as well. So it's really quite a large group of our membership that are either established or thinking about operating in the gig economy. And so we sort of said, okay, what are your concerns? What can we help you with in this environment of being independent? Now, perhaps unsurprisingly for new or transitioning members, finding clients was a top concern, along with related topics like marketing yourself, how to set prices. And for the more established group, actually the same concerns still came up, but there were more nuanced needs like how to communicate your value to clients. So we had all this great insight from the member research, and we were able to sort of bundle up the concerns into 5 main groups, and to then set about answering those 5 big concerns in some resources, which we'll talk about later.
Rosie, I hate to interrupt, but do you mind if I make a comment here? You know, when you talk about the top concerns that came from that survey and study about setting prices and finding clients, I get pretty excited about it because at the association, that is, as you're becoming aware also, I know as you work through on this initiative, but we have so many resources we've been developing over the years for firms, for practice management, for how do you find those clients? How do you set yourself up as that trusted business advisor? All of those things. So and we've got all this rich content, and we thought about it usually from the perspective of a firm in practice, a smaller firm, but really all these resources are so ready for that independent finance professional.
I've often thought about the use of the word gig, and I know that like so much of language today, we find we use the word in one context and then suddenly it becomes relevant in many others. So perhaps we will continue to talk about what gig could actually mean in a minute or two when my conversation with Rosie McKeown and Carl Peterson continues. We're talking about the gig economy, how to get started as an independent finance professional. And we're doing that on the Go Beyond Disruption podcast. If you've just joined us on this podcast for the first time, welcome. There are more than 100 other episodes you could be listening to, and you'll find them all at gobeyonddisruption.com. Of course, anything we talk about, you can find links to the resources we mention by opening the show notes in your podcast app and exploring that further. Remember, new episodes every week, and it's just one of many podcasts brought to you by the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, the unified voice of the AICPA and CIMA. We're talking about the gig economy. Carl Peterson is Vice President for Small Firm Interests based in Durham, North Carolina. Carl, who is attracted to gig working and why would it work for them?
It's attracted really to professionals from all age groups, right? There's a lot of young professionals that have come into the profession of accounting and finance, and they came into this world, right, understanding technology much better than maybe our older colleagues and peers. And they look at the opportunity to leverage technology in the work that they're doing and wanting to be independent and be on their own and controlling their destiny. But then we also have older members and older colleagues in finance professionals that have been around a long time that have developed all this expertise in all areas, right? Supply chain, manufacturing, other areas of professional accounting and finance. And they have this opportunity and they have all this knowledge base. As they're getting further along in their careers, they also want to control, and I keep talking about work-life balance. They want to control that work-life balance. It's an opportunity for them to take advantage of the expertise that they've developed and become that higher end CFO that's outsourced those services, or even outsourced as like a VP of finance. So it's attractive really to all age groups and segments, I think, of our association and the finance category.
I did talk about what the word gig could mean. Maybe that's worth redefining. To many people, it means temporary, but based on what you've both told me, it sounds like it could be standing for going independent for good. So definitely an opportunity here. Rosie, how is the association assisting professionals? I know that you were talking about providing resources and tools to help professionals make the decision or perhaps actually make the move to becoming an independent finance professional or IFP. So what are some of the resources that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, we're starting out small, I guess. We've heard through the research these sort of 5 top concerns, and we've created a set of resources called IFP Essentials, Gig Economy Guidance and Tools. And it's an online offering, starting first for our AICPA members in the US. They'll be able to go onto the website, future.aicpa.org, and find this new set of resources. Now, the resources are split into sort of 5 groups or bundles, and each of them is designed to sort of answer those concerns that we heard in the research. So we've got getting started, being your own boss, clients and brand, technical skills, regulatory resources. And I would encourage our AICPA members to delve into each of those sets of resources, and hopefully there'll be something there, some new ideas, and either get started being an independent finance professional, or perhaps give you new tools and ideas for how to expand your offering.
And you said that while this is a global shift, the resources that we're focusing on at the moment are really offering tools and resources for perhaps the United States initially, but they will roll out more widely in future to support and provide resources for our global professional community. That is the plan, isn't it?
Absolutely, that is the plan. Yeah, IFP Essentials for the time being from launch, which we're aiming for the 3rd week in May 2021. IFP Essentials will be for our AICPA members in the US. But already I am working away, looking at the content through the eyes of our sort of UK audience. And, you know, things you can imagine, a bundle of resources around regulatory resources, you know, has to be finessed for the UK to consider the different government regulations here as opposed to the US. But that is absolutely the ambition, is to expand on these resources and broaden it out so that everyone, all of our members considering going independent or already independent finance professionals, can benefit.
So that's IFP Essentials, and we'll have links to that on the show notes, or at least links to places where you can go to find out more about it once it's launched. Now, there are other things happening. We know we've got lots of AICPA and CIMA conferences coming up shortly. This podcast is being recorded in April 2021, which means that we are not too far from what for us is the summer season of conferencing. And that means there's likely to be a lot of opportunity for our professional community to catch much more about this topic online, as you've mentioned, or perhaps at a conference in real life. So Carl and Rosie, this one for both of you, are there any conferences or events coming up over the next few months that you think independent finance professionals or those considering going in that direction would be particularly recommended for?
Well, here in the U.S., we have the U.S. Engage Conference that is at one of our mega conferences coming up in July. And I know there's a number of courses and sessions in there that is geared towards client growth, soft skills. I think earlier in a conversation I've had with Rosie, she talked about one of our young professionals who graduated from our Leadership Academy is talking about entrepreneurial skills. And he's a very innovative, progressive practitioner, independent finance professional. He does have some staff and stuff, but his experience in getting there and how to get there is worth the conference price itself.
That's right, Carl. Yeah, we interviewed Josh to talk about entrepreneurial skills. I mean, what are they? You know, what do you need to be considering to be an entrepreneur? He features in these resources, and he'll be speaking at Engage, which is great. We've also got the European Engage sessions next month. And again, I think there'll be sessions there where you definitely get inspired to step off on your own.
Sounds good. We'll put links to all of that in our show notes. Now, I just have one question about IFP. We know if people go to the website future.aicpa.org and type in IFP, they may not get the independent finance professional. I think that could also stand for fraud prevention. So would you suggest that they search for independent finance professional, professional development? What are some useful terms to use in search when going to our website?
Search gig economy is a term we are using, and search independent finance professional definitely once we've gone live. And look out for the social media. We're going to start doing the promotion soon too across the usual social media channels. I think there'll be some teaser content there, just, you know, a few quizzes, whet the appetite, get the conversation going, and then there'll be lots of promotion to point people to these new resources.
So all of that to come, but right now the only thing I am able to look at is my final question, because this is the one that we always find people look forward to in a, oh no, is he going to ask us that question kind of way? Well, the answer to that question is yes, I am. And it's a question about a T-shirt. Rosie, I'll start with you, because we ask all our guests to imagine that we've offered them their own Go Beyond Disruption podcast T-shirt. And if you were to print one sentence on the front, which you think delivered a simple message for our listeners to take away from our conversation about the gig economy today, what would it say on the front of the T-shirt? And Carl, I hope you're practicing, because I'm going to ask you what you want to put on the back of it. So, Rosie, what goes on the front of this gig economy T-shirt?
I think I would say go for it. It's been a joy, this project, to work on and to hear from our members. They all say, have confidence. As a skilled, trained finance and accountancy professional, you've got the toolkit to have confidence and go for it. That's quite a long T-shirt. Go for it.
Now I'm going to have to ask Carl, you get the back of the T-shirt, what goes there?
Oh my gosh, the back of the T-shirt. This is perfect. I think as you're walking away with this T-shirt on, others are going to read gig equals work-life balance. I really think that's what gig means, to at least to me and a lot of people that I know that are interested in going off on their own and being independent. It equals work-life balance. And, well, it's too long for the shirt, but gig equals work-life balance. And I think in the end, there's also that opportunity for also financial independence.
Thank you very much, Carl. And before I let you wander off in that T-shirt, there's just one more thing I wanted to ask you. We're going to be dipping back into this topic on more than one occasion over the next couple of months as these new resources are launched for independent finance professionals. So we've got a couple more podcasts about the gig economy coming up. Give us a sense of what we'll be talking about.
We're going to have expanded content, I think, and developing more resources and guidance for those that are interested in becoming gig workers.
Once those podcasts do come out in the future, give us a quick idea of where our professional community can find out about those and click through to listen.
Absolutely. There'll be some blogs on it. There'll be postings in social media. We'll have a social media campaign and probably post it on LinkedIn or various social media platforms.
My guests, Carl Peterson, Vice President for Small Firms Interests, and Rosie McKeown, Content Strategist from our office here in London.
Thank you.
From the Go Beyond Disruption podcast, I'm Kyle Hannon. And until next time, keep listening and keep safe. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Disruption, brought to you by the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Learn more about today's topic at AICPA-CIMA.com/disruption. This podcast is designed to provide illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. It is provided with the understanding that the association, its affiliates, and subsidiaries are not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional services. If such advice or expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. The association, its subsidiaries, and affiliates make no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to and assume no responsibility for the content or application of the material contained herein and expressly disclaim all liability for such damages arising out of the use of, reference to, or reliance on such material.